Welcome to the SBR NHL Ice Guys. We're back. It feels like forever. It feels like I've lived two lives between our last show and this one. But we're back. It's Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day, first and foremost, to everyone in the United States. Special day, barbecues, pool parties, cookouts, fireworks, the whole bit. The usual Memorial Day festivities, I'm sure, taking place all day, all night. Baseball. But two huge sporting events tonight, one of which we'll talk about. Of course, we also have a Game 7 in that other sport is going on tonight. But we're talking about Stanley Cup Finals, Game 1, Washington Capitals, Vegas Golden Knights. Can't wait for this series. It feels like two teams of destiny almost. You know, you got Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals looking to win their first Stanley Cup. Vegas Golden Knights looking to be the first expansion team to win a championship in year one. You got tons of storylines. You got George McPhee, who's worked the management side of both of these franchises. I mean, it is just an absolute smorgasbord of storylines and anticipation and things to look forward to with the Stanley Cup Finals. Joined by Andrew McGinnis and Alex B. Smith. We're going to do something different today. Usually, I'm the one that gives my first take on the series and game one, or any game really, during the show. We're going to let my comrades do the first take on game one and the series overall. Let's go to Andrew McGinnis first. It's Washington, it's Vegas, it's a series full of intrigue. It's two teams that have completely earned the right to be here. Andrew, overall initial thoughts, and then you can get into your betting opinions, whether it's a series price, whether it's a game one side, game one total, just things in general you're looking at here with the Cup Finals starting tonight.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ian. It's great to be back with you guys. I mean, like you said, Ian, it feels like it's been more than just a few days. So this is what we've been waiting for all year long, the four of us, and this is what we've really built up towards. And I think this is one of those years we all have to appreciate that it's not your two cliche teams or two teams that you've really expected, two teams that are always here. So that's what makes this year special. And in my eyes, the difference between this Washington Capitals team and this Las Vegas Golden Knights team is the depth factor. One thing that I really do think is holding back this Washington Capitals team is they have that grudge. They have that chip on their shoulder from not getting to this point. I mean, finally winning that Western Conference Finals, finally getting here to the Stanley Cup. But here, this Vegas team kind of has no pressure. And in my eyes, guys, I'm not discrediting everything that they've done, but I think that really helps them out. But everywhere that they've gone so far this year, it's kind of been a surprise to everybody. I mean, I heard people saying that LA was going to beat them first round. Now look where they are. They're going to win the Stanley Cup in my eyes. So I think that you can really look at them series by series and player by player, line by line. You realize that this team really has nothing to lose, and they've really learned more about themselves as the season has progressed. I mean, everyone calls them the Vegas Misfits or whatever you want to call them, because realistically, it's a bunch of guys, and they couldn't save everybody on every team, but it's a bunch of guys that came together, got thrown together on one team, collectively came to one, and all of a sudden they're here in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I think that if you look at the adversity the Washington Capitals faced, look at the Game 7 that they played, you look at everything that they've done this playoffs, that kind of inspires me to say, look, Holtby came into his own. He had back-to-back shutouts, Game 6, Game 7. We have to recognize that. We have to appreciate that. We have to appreciate Burakovsky's performance. We got to appreciate Kuznetsov's performance throughout the playoffs. We got to appreciate Alex Ovechkin really stepping up and being himself. I mean, let's face it, without Alexander Ovechkin coming to life in every series of this playoffs, they would not be where they are today. And I think that's going to be the biggest X factor in this series, guys, is that we do have to see more guys, and we do have to continue to see that depth as far as this Washington Capitals team goes. I mean, Ian, you and I both talked about Burakovsky as an anytime goal scorer. I've mentioned Devontae Smith-Pelly. I mean, he's down there in the fourth line. We talk about Brett Conley. Talk about, even Backstrom with that hand injury he has, TJ Oshie. These guys have to step up. They have to be huge. This Vegas Golden Knights team, they've proven to us throughout the entire year, throughout really the entire playoffs, they can play any style of hockey. And I think the biggest key is that Marc-Andre Fleury, whether anyone wants to believe this take or not, he has a history with this Washington Capitals team. And I think that actually is important. He knows what they're about. He has taken care of business with them. He is 3-0 against them in a huge series. And his goals against average is around, I believe it was like 2.78 or something like that. That's something that you don't want to undermine. I mean, he knows this team very well. And I think that defense is going to be the biggest key in this series. I think this is going to be a very big under series, guys. We've got two teams that can score, two teams that are firepower offenses. but I really do think this is going to have to stay low scoring. Marc-Andre Fleury is an absolute brick wall. He will hold the Conn Smythe Trophy this year in my eyes. But I really do think game by game, battle by battle, we're looking at this Vegas game one in T-Mobile Arena. I just think it's unstoppable. Washington Capitals are coming in off a huge win, but it's like Dana always uses it, and it's like a lot of people always use. Are their bellies full? Are they too satisfied already? Obviously, they're not satisfied. They want to get the cup, but no one can ever stop someone with the way they feel mentally, the way they feel emotionally on the inside. This Vegas team is looking to go all the way. I mean, this Vegas team is surprising themselves every series, every game. Meanwhile, this Washington Capitals team celebrated that conference final win, in my eyes, maybe a little bit too much. But they also did say, we're ready for the next series. We're ready for the Stanley Cup Finals, etc. So in my eyes, looking at this, I'm looking at a bet. I believe it was like plus 345. I'll check in while you guys are speaking, but I'm looking at Vegas to win in 6 in this game. I just think overall, game by game, Vegas will wear and tear this Washington Capitals team. Holtby will not win the goaltending battle. Marc-Andre Fleury will continue to succeed, continue to read plays, continue to read these passing lanes. And the power play is pretty much going to have to be huge. It's going to have to be lethal for this Washington Capitals team for them to have any success versus this Vegas Golden Knights team. I think the biggest advantage as well is that, of course, Ian, you mentioned McPhee being with both teams at one point. I think that overall, line by line, stacking up, you look at skill-wise, you might see a couple more all-stars, a couple more big names on this Washington Capitals team. But you look at what they contribute to their team, what they can do. I mean, I'm not going to forget about Ryan Reeves scoring that big goal for the Vegas Golden Knights in their clinching game. I mean, that's something that you have to think about. I mean, I'm not saying he'll come out and do that again, but you got to look at the depth. You got to look at what each team is going to bring. And overall, I think the experience is almost in the Vegas Golden Knights' favor. I know that sounds weird to say because it's their first year as an expansion team, but just game by game, series by series, they've been through so much turmoil, guys, so much adversity, so much for this first year of their expansion year team. There's so much in the eyes of this Capitals team. They don't really know what to expect, and nor does Vegas. But I think that's actually in their favor. So for me, game one, I'm looking at under 5.5 minus 120. This is going to be a very, very tight game. I think lots of chances, but Holtby and Fleury are going to play out of their minds. I'm looking at more of a 3-1, 3-2 style game.
All right, so there we go. Andrew's takes on the series as a whole. He likes Vegas in it. Fleury to win the I'm convinced Fleury's winning this Conn Smythe Trophy if Vegas is indeed the Stanley Cup champion, and even a potential that if he's awesome in this series and Vegas loses in 6 or 7, but Fleury's fantastic in the series despite the losing result, he probably could still win the Conn Smythe Trophy. We did see, and I mentioned this in the chat, Jean-Sébastien Giguère way back in the day, Anaheim Ducks 2003 Stanley Cup Final, won the Conn Smythe Trophy, even though the New Jersey Devils beat them in that Stanley Cup Finals that year with a young, and I mean young, Mike Babcock coaching the Anaheim Ducks way back then. That was his first NHL head coaching job. Giguère won the Conn Smythe, even though Anaheim, his team, did not win that Stanley Cup Finals. So it's not completely past the realm of possibility that Fleury can win it, even if Vegas does not win this series. And primary game one bet for Andrew, he mentioned it was the under in this game, 5.5, which is around minus 125 right now at the current price point. Alex B. Smith, Washington, Vegas for you. Game one, anything you're looking at, series as a whole, give us your takes on the Capitals and the Golden Knights.
Well, it's funny. I was reading quotes and stuff the last couple of days, and Nate Schmidt said, he says, this is the final that wasn't meant to be, or that shouldn't have happened, but this is what we have, and it's going to be awesome. I mean, he said the storylines write themselves. You got an expansion team in Vegas, overcoming all of the odds, just an incredible season. Winning the division, top team in the Western Conference, one of the top teams in the Western Conference, railing through everybody in the playoffs, and now getting here at this point is nothing short of amazing. But Washington proving me wrong, proving a whole bunch of people wrong, finally making it to a Cup final. Ovechkin's first trip to a Cup final, and all of the hard work that he's put in himself reminds you a lot of we talk about that other sport with LeBron James carrying a team on his back. I mean, that's Ovechkin. You can put him in that same kind of category because he's literally done so much for Washington, where there were just years where other guys didn't pick up the slack. Goaltending was an issue, coaching was an issue, but Ovechkin's been consistent throughout, and he finally gets rewarded with at least four, between 4 and 7 games at a shot at Lloyd hoisting the Stanley Cup. So it's going to be an awesome series, but I think Vegas is just simply going to be too much. We've seen Washington fall behind in each series in the playoffs, but against teams that Columbus, a team that we, can kind of say now can't really close anybody out in the playoffs. We've seen this 3 times over. A team in Pittsburgh that looked dead tired, that had already won back-to-back Stanley Cups, played a lot of hockey over the last several years, and then a team at Tampa Bay, a team that we've seen choke in big times over the years too, despite being one of the better teams out of the Eastern Conference. Vegas is not going to let them get that opportunity. If they go down 1 game, 2 games to Vegas, Vegas has the killer instinct, the clutch mentality that you need to win a Stanley Cup. They're not going to have a chance to get out of this thing and make it an even series. I got Vegas winning this thing in 5. I do think Washington wins the first game at home in Game 3. The atmosphere there is going to be way too electric, just like the atmosphere will be tonight in Vegas. And I think that'll be the 1 game that they win. So I'm looking to play. I think I saw plus 170 where Vegas can win in 5. I've seen a few props where where will the Cup land in Washington or Vegas. I think it's minus 130 that the Cup will be clinched in Las Vegas. So there's a couple of ways to attack that side if you're looking at it. But as far as Game 1 goes, I do think we're going to see some scoring early. It's been talked about Braden Holtby's 160 minute 2-game shutout streak. I think that's going to come to an end early. I think Vegas is going to once again use their speed to attack. Get things going, generated quickly. I think we see a 1-1 game here. I think Washington will be able to answer that back. So it also opens up some really good live wagering opportunities. Whichever side you're looking at, I think you'll be able to find an even better price than you're seeing right now. If you wait and wagering live. I did put a little bit on Vegas at minus 130 when it dropped. Now we're seeing 145, 150, of course. Vegas, and that's the thing. We're going to see that, I think, every game throughout the series. We're going to see money coming in on Vegas, whichever price. So you want to act quickly or wait until live wagering. That's going to be, I think, a key factor. I also like the first period over 1.5. I got it at minus $1.05. Like I said, I think we're going to see at least 2 goals scored. I think we could even see 3 possibly, but I think each team will be able to score a goal in the first period, try and set the momentum. We're not going to see like we've seen in the conference finals where teams are kind of sitting back, being a little bit more defensive minded. I think we're going to see these 2 teams really engage because they have the offenses to do so, and they want to try and really get after each goaltender, try to get them off of their game a little bit because these are 2 world-class goalies that know each other very well. Of course, Fleury, like I said, his days back with Pittsburgh. Fleury's record 22-12-2 against the Capitals going back with his days with the Penguins, and of course the 2 games that they played this year. We had, I think it was Knights played Washington back on Super Bowl Sunday and came back with a crazy game, got a 4-3 win, and then way back early in the year, DC traveled to Vegas and lost 3-0 in a shutout. So Vegas, I like them to win tonight. I like the over 1.5 goals in the first period, and I think Vegas wins this series and hoists the Cup in 5 games.
All right, so Vegas in 5 games. Vegas in Game 1 and the over 1.5 in first period. Primary recommendations and initial thoughts from Alex B. Smith here on the Capitals and Golden Knights. I think that's a element that I haven't heard people talk about enough, and we've already talked about it here these last few minutes. Marc-Andre Fleury just faced this Washington Capitals team last year in the playoffs and Pittsburgh's Cup run last year, and he wasn't just good in that series. He was phenomenal. He was outstanding. It seemed like as that series progressed, he got inside Ovechkin's head, Backstrom's head. Oshie was on the team still back then. All these guys, and now they're going to be up against this guy one more time. Maybe now, okay, you could say that the counter argument is, okay, it's not the same mentally weak, meek Washington team. Maybe they're ready to overcome that. They're ready to have a different plan of attack. Maybe, not get so down on themselves, not get discouraged if they have a hard time finding the back of the net initially, stick with it. Maybe they've overcome that this season, heading into this series as they take on Marc-Andre Fleury now with the Vegas Golden Knights. But you still got to wait to see how that ends up playing out. Now, in terms of my thoughts here, I'm not going to be much help for anybody from a side perspective in this series. I'm really not. I'm at the point where I think Vegas, if I had to give a lean to wins the series, I'd say Vegas probably in 6 or 7, although I'm not very ultra confident in that. I think Washington does have a legit chance here. They've played great on the road, which is why I think starting on the road is, not going to be a big issue with them. They're 8-2 on the road here in the playoffs. But as I said in the last round against Winnipeg, I had not really made all that much of a point of betting against the Golden Knights at any point this season, when all of a sudden I got the inclination to bet against them not once but twice in a row at T-Mobile Arena against Winnipeg in the Western Conference Finals, and it didn't end well. And right away, and I said that in the show after that, I'm done. Not betting against this team. I'm not doing it, and I'm very reluctant to do that in any venue right now, home or away with this Vegas Golden Knights team. You can make the argument Washington is every bit feels like the stars are aligned for Ovechkin finally to hoist the Stanley Cup. But I think you can say that easily about this Vegas team with the magical season they've had, a great run through the Stanley Cup playoffs, dispatching Winnipeg in 5 games, including a dominant Road 5 closeout effort. That is 2 dominant closeout performances by Vegas on the road to end a series. San Jose, they did it in the second round in Game 6. They did it against the Winnipeg Jets in Game 5 in the Western Conference Finals, like they were suffocating defensively. So side perspective, I don't have much in Game 1 or in the series as a whole. I'd lean a little bit to Vegas, probably in like a 6 or 7 gamer. I think it will be a long series. I think it will be competitive, but Vegas will find a way. And just to answer Andrew's question, because he brought up the exact series results, it was plus 450 on Vegas to win in 6, plus 400 to win in 7 for the Vegas Golden Knights. So I would take a little shot on both of those, because again, if you split, one of those comes in, Vegas in 6 or Vegas in 7, you get profit. That's what it's all about. If you place equal money wagers on those exact series bets, and that's something I'll probably be looking to do. But I'm not involved in the side tonight, but I am involved in the total here in Game 1. Now, I'm not convinced this series as it goes along is going to be a high-scoring series. I think as it goes along, we're going to see defenses take over. We're going to see goaltending really shine. But maybe Game 1 you do see things a little tight, but I am going to go with something that's worked for me all season long, and it's been a remarkable trend. It's been a totals trend with this team that I've consistently won with this season, and I'm going to try it one more time. The Washington Capitals on extended rest, 3 days or more, 10-1-1 to the over. 10-1-1 in 12 games to the over, playing on extended rest, 3 days or more. None of it's fluky. You go back and see those 12 games that they had extended rest, Washington, 10-1-1 to the over. Not a fluke or accident. They scored a bunch of goals. They scored 4 or 5 in a lot of those games, but they also gave up 3, 4, 5 goals in a lot of those games. Rusty defense, rusty goaltending maybe from Braden Holtby, a good offense that didn't seem to actually, they had more energy in terms of attacking offensively with the extended rest. So that's something. There's something to that. 10-1-1, you don't get that kind of over trend in 12 games by accident. When you're playing on extended rest. They scored 3+ goals in their first road game of each playoff series this year, Washington. That's something they've gone on. And you remember the Vegas Golden Knights. What was their worst performance, particularly defensively, and what was Marc-Andre Fleury's worst performance in the Winnipeg series? Oh, yeah, it was Game 1 off an extended layoff, extended rest. That was, Marc-Andre Fleury was not sharp at the very beginning of that game when Winnipeg pounced. And we're seeing a very similar circumstances and very similar situation here. Vegas, a long layoff since they closed out Winnipeg, a very long layoff. Is Marc-Andre Fleury, for as great as he was, as that Winnipeg series gone on, Game 1 was the only bad game he had. He was phenomenal after that. Little worried that layoff maybe means Marc-Andre Fleury has his B- or C game tonight as opposed to his A+ or A or even A- game. It's definitely a concern I have. However, on the flip side, is the Washington Capitals a team that I can trust here in a Game 1 spot with a layoff of their own, not as big, but still a layoff of their own to shut down Vegas and their offense here at T-Mobile Arena when they'll be fired up beyond belief playing in front of this venue. I think it's going to be tough for Braden Holtby as well. And Braden Holtby's another guy. His numbers, with extended rest, not sparkling this year, something like a 3.1 goals against average. That's not great. So I think Vegas finds the back of the net tonight. I think Washington's got a chance to find the back of the net tonight. Again, 10-1-1 to the over, 12 games with extended rest for Washington. Vegas has scored 3 goals or more in 5 consecutive home playoff games at T-Mobile Arena entering tonight. And you get a 5.5 and you get plus 105 with it, a plus price attached to boot. I think the series goes along. You're going to see more unders than overs in this series. I think it's going to get tighter as it goes on. But again, we saw Vegas play sloppy Game 1 against Winnipeg. Washington pounced offensively against Tampa Bay. You remember in that first game of the Eastern Conference Finals as well. But I think they're going to give up more to Vegas tonight than they gave up to Tampa in Game 1 of that series. So 4-1 as well. Vegas to the over in their last 5 home playoff games. So yeah, to finally wrap this long-winded rebuttal up, I'm on the over tonight, 5.5 plus 105 here in Game 1 between Vegas and Washington. And Alex, as he mentioned, he kind of likes over 1.5 in the first period as well, which is another thing I'd consider looking at. Again, think this is not a series where I'd be looking to bet over game in and game out. It really isn't. I think it's going to tighten up. Holtby and Fleury are going to get their wits about them, I think, as the series goes on. But I've got a few concerns, at least, that tonight you may not see the best of either goaltender in between the pipes tonight here in Game 1. And again, with that Washington 10 overs in 12 games with extended rest, that's a meaningful totals trend that I think is worth riding tonight here in Game 1. Let's get into the goal scoring props. We got about 5 minutes before we wrap it up. Let's talk about some of these. Well, I'm just going to rhyme off some prices quickly. I'm going to go really fast with these because these are things it's the Stanley Cup Finals. Have some fun. As long as you're betting small units, small amounts on this, have some fun with the goal scorers markets. I like doing that. You know that. I've made a lot of recommendations on past shows for goal scorers. William Karlsson minus 105 to score anytime. Not much value there. Even Ovechkin plus 110. His price has consistently risen. Our buddy, this is actually still a good price for him. He's almost always scored. Our old buddy Johnny Masserole, plus 155 here. That name is stuck with him forever now after that Don Cherry episode. There's no question about that. Jonathan Marchessault, plus 155. Yeah. By the way, it's the the Washington Capitals. If you listen to Don Cherry in one of the coaches' corners, it's not going to be any easier. It's going to be a lot harder going to Marc-Andre Fleury in this series, coming from Valinsky in the last series for the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's what Don called him. Good old Valinsky in the net for the Tampa Bay Lightning there. So I would love Don. We do it. We poke fun at him and we joke because it's hilarious. That's why. It's nothing mean-spirited or anything like that. Evgeny Kuznetsov plus 190 for the Washington Capitals. Not bad. I'm going to go on down the line here and actually get some real bargain bin value. There's 2 goal scorer props that I will have small plays on tonight. I'm going to look at Alex Tuch for the Vegas Golden Knights at plus 400. Here's a guy now that has scored a goal in 2 of the last 3 playoff games for the Vegas Golden Knights. And what do I like to bet with the goal scoring props at this time of year? Change. Guys that maybe were struggling are starting to find the back of the net a little bit. Alex Tuch is one of those guys. A playoff goal in 2 of the last 3 games for Vegas, plus 400 to score a goal tonight. Sign me up. And the other guy is Andre Burakovsky. I mentioned before Game 7 against Tampa Bay, this guy's had chances. He's only been back a few games from injury. He's going to eventually, I think, score a goal. Well, he did better than that in Game 7 against Tampa. Scored a couple against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Andre Burakovsky plus 400 as well to score a goal tonight here in Game 1. Again, a guy that had no confidence, none, zero. You saw him, his head down on the bench, very frustrated, very upset that he missed so many good chances earlier in that series. Finally scores 2 huge goals for Washington in that Game 7 victory against Tampa Bay. And I think that's confidence that can carry over. There's a little more pep in the step. You're not gripping the stick as tight when you get a shot and a chance on goal now. I think Burakovsky's going to be able to relax a little bit now that he's found the back of the net a couple of times. So that's another one. Great value there, I think. Andre Burakovsky to score a goal tonight, plus 400. Very good value there indeed. Alex, I think Andrew got up. He might be back now. But yeah, you rhyme off a player. If there's one that you're interested in that you think might score a goal, I'll give you the price, and you can let me know if you think that's something that you think is worth a shot.
Well, one guy, and I'll mention a prop that I'm looking at here with total points, top point scorer in the series. Wild Bill William Karlsson at 7-1 is the guy I'd be looking at. So he's somebody I would be looking at to get a goal in the night. He's I think he is tied with Riley Smith. No, he's tied with our guy Masserole actually, Marchessault for goals for the Knights this year. So I could see him getting a goal tonight. So what's up? I'm sure it's probably going to be a not too much value on him tonight, but he's a goal scorer I would definitely look at tonight.
You hear Ian? I can't hear him.
No, I can't hear. Yeah, I can't hear him either.
Oh, there we go.
Like,
There we go. I had a mute on.
there
My
we All
bad.
right.
Yeah. William Carlson is minus 105.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no
Okay. So
player
yeah,
that
it's
is
not a lot of,
yeah, not great value.
value
But
there.
if you think he's gonna have a big night, maybe Alex, plus 550 to score 2 or more. There you go. Now you're
Okay,
ringing the
that's
value
worth looking
meter a
at.
little
Yeah.
bit.
So that you get one goal, and then maybe he gets a shot at empty net. If he's got two, obviously they're gonna try and look to give him maybe one more. So yeah, that's decent price worthy. I think he's a guy and another prop that I looked at too. You have this top points guy in the series, top goal scorer and top assist guy. Riley Smith has had 14 assists in this playoff so far. You can get him at 4-1. The shop that I'm looking at, so that's something that I more than likely might put. Like I said, very, very small units. I'm chopping this up, like you said, beer and vodka money on some of these props and so forth, at the end of the year. But it's still some decent value, I think, with those two certain players. I think those are two guys who they've been huge so far. If Vegas is going to win the cup, they're going to need these two guys to step up and continue doing what they're doing.
All right, so there you go. As I said, I like the 2 plus 400 guys. I'm going for value. I'm going for a big score here, the big value cash here. Alex Tuch plus 400 for Vegas, a goal in 2 of the last 3 playoff games for him, and Andre Burakovsky for Washington plus 400. Guy that finally got off the schneid, got his confidence back with 2 huge Game 7 goals against Tampa. Burakovsky and Tuch, great value, both of them plus 400 tonight. Andrew, any goal scoring props tickle your fancy tonight?
Well, Smith Pelly is plus 1,200, and that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's
line,
not
but
bad. That's not bad,
I mean,
actually, because he goes to the front of the net and scores where you need to score goals. Tough areas. Yep.
like for me with this Washington team, guys, I know we got to expect the Stars to come if they're going to have any chance in this series. But if we're looking at these goal scorers, like you said, Ian, looking for the value and stuff like that. I mean, you can look at Lars Eller here for plus 400. I mean, he's not my favorite player on the Capitals by any means, but I'd rather take him than take a guy like Ovechkin, plus 110 and stuff like that. So keep the units low, keep the money low, and just sprinkle some money on some of these higher guys, and you can be successful. Like you mentioned, Alex Tuch plus 400. I mean, you could possibly get in there. I mean, these guys are the ones that find the edges. These guys are the ones that aren't scared to go to the dirty areas, get in front of the net. We're not talking about a fancy breakaway, top corner goal or a power play goal. All we need is a nice little tap in or, just any kind of goal to get their team on the board. So, these guys are, Smith Pelly at plus 1,200. I can't really disagree with that. I mean, the price that you're getting, it's all about the prices, like you always tell me, and from a betting perspective, we can't really go wrong with some of these prices we're getting. Even TJ Oshie at plus 300, I would lean.
Yeah, Oshie's not. That's not bad. You're getting a better price now with Oshie. He was down around 200 earlier in the playoffs, 300 now. They've dropped him a bit because he was quiet for the most part in the Tampa Bay series. So that's why, the more I look at this Tuch one for Vegas, I'm liking it even more. I'm looking at his playoff stats here from goal scoring perspective. He scored a goal in Game 2 at home against LA, scored a goal against San Jose in Game 1 at home, scored a goal against San Jose in Game 5 at home, 2 goals in that San Jose Game 5, and then he scored one of his 2 goals against Winnipeg at home. He's been more of a home playoff goal scorer than a road playoff goal scorer. So there's another thing that's kind of interesting here with Alex Tuch at that plus 400 price. So that, yeah, I'm talking myself into that one even more without a doubt. And like I say, Burakovsky's what? Whoa, who is this stranger here? Strangers in the night, strangers in the night, Frank Sinatra style. Dana Lane is joining us here. We got to get his take on this Washington Vegas series, of course. Dana, welcome back, my friend. Good to see you.
Well, it's going to take me 20 minutes to get centered, but when I do, I figured you guys have ripped this thing apart for 30 minutes already. But guys, for me, it's very simple. I mean, as soon as San Jose and Pittsburgh got knocked out, I mean, it was Las Vegas for me. It was, I just thought, hey, look, man, this is the most complete team, not only defensively. I mean, we talk so much about the top 6 forwards or the top 6 defensemen defensively, but as a unit, I mean, they are fantastic defensively. And again, we go back to, well, what is speed? Well, speed is not just going up and down, 200 feet of ice. Speed is also the ability to back check. The speed is also the ability to beat your man down the wing and have position like we saw James Neal do in the last series. I mean, that's what speed is, and speed sometimes is mistaken for desire when in fact it's really one and the same. And I think that's definitely on Vegas's side. from a defensive standpoint, guys, I mean, you have to look in goal. I know it's easy to kind of put your uh, kind of lean on Marc-Andre Fleury and say, well, he's the reason that I like him. But, it really does come down to it, because this time of year, when you're talking about conference finals or the Stanley Cup finals, it really does come down to which goaltender is better. And, certainly you look in recent form, Marc-Andre Fleury's recent form, especially in the win column, is so much better than what Braden Holtby's is. And, I mean, that save percentage of 938 in his last 5 games. I mean, how do you go against that until you start seeing some cracks? And, he's been absolutely fantastic. And now, I think that the two top pairing that Vegas has with Braden McNabb and Schmidt, I think they're completely overrated or underrated, especially McNabb. I mean, nobody talks. I've talked to people this week and said, "Hey, look, who do you think is the most underrated Vegas night player?" And people will come up with, Riley Smith and Bellemare, but I mean, Braden McNabb is by far the most underrated Vegas Golden Knight player. And not only does he block shots, but I think he hits. I mean, his hit count, I think, is much more than people actually realize. I mean, you talk about Ryan Reeves come in and giving them a physical presence. I mean, Braden McNabb certainly has done that, and not only has he didn't do that at the end of the year, he's been doing it all season. So, from my standpoint, top 6 defensemen. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I would probably go back with Washington if you're just talking about defensive core. But as a whole, this Vegas Golden Knight team is relentless. They're better on defense, and they have more speed. And you'll find this tonight, guys, and you guys know this, but you'll find this tonight. The first period, it's almost gonna we talk about a feeling out process. Well, this is a true feeling out process, because neither of these teams really have any disdain for each other, so they're trying to conjure up that emotion, I think, probably for the first half of the game, trying to get the juices flowing, and trying to find some reason to kind of dislike the other team. Whereas you go through Winnipeg and LA, and I mean, obviously you can find that, and from a Capital side, obviously they could find that with Pittsburgh. But I think there's going to be a little bit of a lull to start this series. But the other factor, guys, and I won't go too much longer, but it's been 3 weeks since I've talked, so I've got to get it out. The rest factor, guys, 20-9 in total days off in this postseason in favor of Vegas. That's absolutely huge. And is so you want to say, well, was Vegas one of those teams when they get a layoff, are they not good coming back, or are they good coming back? Well, all we have to do is go back to the previous series against San Jose and watch what they did off of a layoff. I mean, they were chomping at the bit. They were, drooling to get back on the ice, and they came out and absolutely crushed San Jose after a bunch of time off. And San Jose had that too. But there were certainly 2 different responses to time off, and I think Vegas will respond tonight and win this game tonight.
All right, so Vegas, most of us, by the way, Dana, we're on the board with Vegas winning this series. I think I'm probably the most lukewarm of the bunch in terms of Vegas winning this series. I think it's 6 or 7, but I do lean slightly to them. And like I said, I'm done betting against Vegas. I did it those 2 times against Winnipeg in the last round and lost both times. That's it. We can find other ways to make money in this series, and hopefully I'm going to be able to do that tonight with some goal scoring props, hopefully with the over 5.5 plus 105, which, as I mentioned, Washington 10-1 to the over with extended rest this season. That is not a fluke track record by any stretch of the imagination. And again, Fleury's the one game that him and the defense of Vegas looked a little unglued in the Winnipeg series was that very first game off an extended layoff after they beat San Jose, and that's the case they've got here, an extended layoff. Is Fleury just going to fly in there and be great right away here in game 1 off a long time between games? That's a big question. Yep.
Let's be honest, though, Ian. Going into a home game 1 against San Jose is a lot different than that nut house up at MTS. I mean, that was the first time. I don't even think it was a skill thing. It was just a whoa thing. We need to get acclimated to this. And I was asked earlier about home ice advantage. I think there's probably 3, maybe 4 rinks in this league where that is a huge advantage. And guys, that MTS is a smaller place. I mean, they're right on top of you, and I really think it took them about 10 to 12 minutes to get acclimated. But honestly, guys, I think that 10 to 12 minutes is the reason why they'll actually win the Stanley Cup, because there is nothing. I mean, if you were able to go into Winnipeg and beat them on their home ice, and that's not the first time they've done it this year, you certainly will not have any kind of problem going into Tampa or Washington that are much quieter buildings.
I agree. And the one thing about this game one, and the one thing that differs, the situation is similar in the long layoff aspect of it, but that game one was in Winnipeg on the road, little tricky, little dicey to deal with, especially that initial game and that crowd noise for the first time. This is a game one at home for the Vegas Golden Knights here. So it is a long layoff, but eventually rust can be overcome by a crowd that's going absolutely bonkers for you and giving you the energy and the adrenaline you need maybe to overcome the rust and overcome just not being over sharp maybe on the onset of that game. So that's something to monitor tonight. So it's a big difference. It could be a big difference potentially. Long layoff going into a game one road game as opposed to long layoff going into a game one home game. We're going to see if there's a big difference in the Vegas performance between the two tonight for sure here in game one. I think before we wrap it up, we'll just get quick little final thoughts in terms of anything you're looking at series in game one. For me, nothing in the series, nothing sidewise in game one. I'll sprinkle on Vegas in 6 and Vegas in 7 exact series bets, plus 450, plus 400. One of those cashes, your profit. That's what I'll be looking to do. And I'm on over 5.5 plus 105. Again, the one defensive sore spot for Vegas in the last series was that game one off the long layoff. Washington's been scoring goals off extended rest, giving up goals off extended rest, 10-1-1 to the over in 12 games this season off extended rest. So over 5.5, my official pick for game one tonight. Andrew, final thoughts and final bets for the series and for game one.
Yeah, guys, I really just think that the speed of this Vegas team is going to be too much for Washington. I think that especially on the road for Washington right now, there's a lot more pressure on the line of guys like Kuznetsov, even Wilson, Ovechkin, Backstrom, Oshie, those kind of guys, than there really is on Carlson, Smith, Marchessault, even guys like James Neal, simply because of the 4 lines of speed. This Vegas team, every time they play a team that hasn't played them in the playoffs yet, they kind of get hit. I mean, I don't think this Washington Capitals team knows what to expect from this Vegas team. I think there's way too much pressure on the top guns. If Washington's going to be even a little bit successful, they're going to have to get that secondary scoring. It's going to have to come more than just a few times in this series. I'm in agreement with Ian on the 6 and 7 for Vegas Golden Knights. More stronger on the 6th. I think it'll be Vegas Golden Knights winning this Stanley Cup Finals in 6 games. And my official play is under 5.5 minus 120 this game.
All right, Alex B. Smith, final bets, final thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an excellent series, and Andrew, I agree with you too. I think the speed and honestly the goaltending. I mean, even though we've seen great goaltending from Holtby, especially as of late, but I think Fleury is going to be the guy to step up and steal this series. Once again, along with just the speed and offensive talent we've seen from Vegas, and you look at think about the stress and pressure factor. It's just not there with Vegas. They simply do not seem fazed by any of the pressure throughout this entire inaugural campaign. Whereas Washington, like I said, this is the first rodeo for them as far as the Cup final goes. In the Ovechkin era, I think there might, if we see tighter sticks on one side or the other, it's going to be with the Capitals than it would be with the Knights. So I think Vegas wins this series in 5. I think they handle it pretty easily, and I think they get off to a good start here with a win at home tonight. Like I said, I like the over in the first period, over 1.5. I think Vegas, if you're looking to play Vegas, I would go regulation, obviously, over the minus 145 price that you're seeing now. But I think Vegas takes care of business early and often, wraps this series up, and they'll be hoisting the cup, on the strip in 5 games.
5 games. It's not crazy without the realm of possibility. I mean, Vegas in 5. Everyone's going to whoa, 5 games? Well, look what they did to Winnipeg. 5 games. Who saw that? It's very possible. Very possible. Dana Lane, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, I got to find a regulation line too, but I mean, I don't. That line is dipping below and above $1.50, so that's my cutoff. I mean, I'll play if I can get $1.45. I'll play Vegas, but Fleury is 22-12-2 all time against the Washington Capitals. He shut them out in December 3-0. They beat them 4-3 in overtime, and that was in February, and that was a game where Ovechkin got one shot in 23 minutes. Although Philip Grubauer started that game, so they've got the blueprint for stopping Ovechkin. I don't necessarily think Ovechkin loves playing in this environment. I sometimes you got to read between the lines when these guys talk about the atmosphere. I don't think he's very comfortable here, which is absolutely fantastic. Media day has been absolutely out of control. It does appear like Vegas is very comfortable in their own skin in this situation, but and it also, in case you're wondering about the lines, because Gerard Gallant has bounced the lines back once for a little bit. I do expect Perron, Holla, and Neal to play on one line, and then Tuck, Carpenter, and Eakin. Sometimes they move Perron down. So that looks like what's going to be the line combo tonight. One key note, though, guys, remember, Maxime Legacy is going to be the backup for Marc-Andre Fleury tonight. It will not be Malcolm Subban. A lot of people are trying to figure out why that is, but without any kind of reasoning that is worth repeating. But there's a lot of things I think that Vegas does a really good job of trying to cover up. The other thing too is, one other note, Will Carrier skated at morning practice this morning with a white jersey, so that means he was able to receive contact, so that might be a surprise addition as well. I'm in Vegas tonight.
All right, Vegas, minus 145, minus 150 is the money line price. The regulation line price is around plus 110. So, again, take your pick with which way you want to go. But Dana will be on Vegas, that side, here in Game 1. Gerard Gallant's not one of those guys I question at all usually, but I would if he gives Perron a higher place on these line combinations than Alex Tuch. That bothers me, considering I like Tuch to score tonight at plus 400, considering he's always shown up and produced in big spots here at home in the playoffs, where sometimes Perron's one of the few guys on this Vegas team. There's been nights you can't find him with a telescope on the ice surface. There hasn't been many of those guys for Vegas here in the playoffs, but he's been one of them at times. He hasn't really put his thumbprint and imprint on the playoffs here for the Vegas Golden Knights. But in Gerard, we trust. If he thinks that's going to be better for the team tonight and going forward, okay. I'm not questioning him. He's going to win Coach of the Year. So who am I to, poo-poo whatever he decides to
hey,
do.
Ian, hey, listen, there's no guarantee that that's the way it has to stay. It doesn't have to stay like that the whole game. I mean, he's very systematic in his line changes. I mean,
Yep.
So it may not change, but it could change from game to game. We've certainly have seen that in past series.
Yeah, and he's willing to roll with the changes, so to speak, like REO Speedwagon a long time ago. He's definitely one of those guys that, if he sees something not going right, he'll juggle the lines a little bit a lot of coaches will do that, but definitely Gerard Gallant, he'll mix things up. If he sees one guy maybe not playing as well, or another guy on a line, third or fourth line, maybe making more of an impact, maybe elevate that guy up to another line and get him more minutes. We've seen that. So that could be something Gallant decides to do for sure. That was a great first show. Wow, that was fantastic. Great breakdown, thorough breakdown. We hit everything. Side, total, series in general. We gave you some goal scoring props. Whatever I bet goal scoring prop wise, I will post on Twitter. I know I gave you Tuch on the Vegas side, Burakovsky on the Washington side. If I have any more than that, I will post those as well on Twitter at Bobano. Andrew is on Twitter at McGinnis Picks. Alex B. Smith on Twitter at AX Smith Sports. Dana Lane on Twitter at Dana Lane Sports. So that's the way you get a hold of all of us. We are back for the finals, and we're looking forward to, hopefully, a great Stanley Cup Finals. We'll be back on Wednesday. Our next show will be 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday, late afternoon show, as usual, as it's always been on Wednesdays during the playoffs. And we will get you ready for Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals at T-Mobile Arena, Capitals in Vegas, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. For Andrew McGinnis, Alex B. Smith, and Dana Lane, who's back in the fold, I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Enjoy Game 1 of the finals tonight, everybody. Thanks for watching, and happy Memorial Day one more time to everybody in the United States, and we'll see you again on Wednesday.